And before we close, I would like to just come back to Oliver and just take a little bit of time to reflect more specifically on learning and the importance of learning. Because we've talked a lot about seafood, but we're also talking about an online course. So first of all, I wonder if you could maybe share with us, in your learning journey, a personal anecdote of something that you learned that was interesting, that was original, that maybe changed your life. And maybe that's a bit exaggerated, but something along those lines.
Yeah, plenty. Still learning every single day, but yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know if I could pinpoint one specific moment when something's kind of changed my life, but for me it's kind of been 1,000 cuts. I think there's one clear line I think that I've really picked up in the past few years, meeting with people I think from all walks of life. Obviously I'm working in sort of the food space, but also in the seafood space, and it's just that everyone has different perspectives. I think you don't really know what you don't know, I think is a really important line that I've picked up and I've kind of carried along with me. And I think a lot of us sort of see our truth, or the thing that we think is truth, only because of what we don't really know, or these other perspectives that we haven't really taken on board yet, which I think is great. It creates these perspectives, and I think we kind of need that. But I've seen that a lot of these sort of inefficiencies or breakdowns in our supply chains, and especially in food systems, I think come generally from people like not putting in the time and the energy to understand why other people might think the way that they do, or why they might act the way that they do. Essentially just closing themselves off to not accepting another person's version of the truth based on their own perspective. And I know it sounds very kind of philosophical, but I think it really applies in the learning sense, because we've ended up with these sort of divisions, with people not being willing to open up between, us as consumers and like the producers who make our food, or the producers and the retailers, or even the retailers and the policy makers that, and even the scientists that advise them. I think a lot of these are kind of partially responsible for the poor state of our food systems and fisheries. And I've seen that with a lot of people I've talked to. And I think that can be solved, honestly, just through learning and taking the time to understand why people act the way that they do. And more often than not, I've seen that most of us have the same kind of broad goals, I think. So people, regardless of our job, I think we all sort of, if you ask people, would want the world to be kind of more sustainable, the fisheries sector in this instance to be more sustainable and be more equitable, I think, for everyone in it. But we all have our totally unique way of looking at it. So the fishermen have their own unique way of looking at it, and policymakers have their own way of looking at it. So for me, it's just been about taking a step back, I think, from my own sort of version of the truth, and trying to open up and listen and learn as much as I possibly can. And I think taking any course like this or any of the other ones on FutureLearn is kind of a perfect step towards opening yourself up and trying to take on a new perspective, which is super valuable. I think super valuable.